Okay, 9.1 gas exchange, from mistakes to mastery. So, picture this. You walk out of the exam hall feeling incredibly confident, only to get your results weeks later and realize you missed the grade boundary by just 2 marks. Why? Because you fell into the exact same trap as thousands of other Cambridge biology candidates. 9.1 gas exchange between alveoli and blood capillaries is notorious for this. It's a high-stakes battleground, and ordinary studying? Yeah, it simply doesn't cut it here.
Let's dive right into this. Think about this classic, totally flawed student answer. Gas exchange happens in the lungs. Look, if you write this, you score 0 marks. None. It's so vague, and it's a super common mistake that will completely tank your score. Now, contrast that with the top band approach. Oxygen diffuses down a concentration gradient across the squamous epithelium of the alveoli. Boom. You've got specific terminology, exact locations, precise biological mechanisms. This difference right here? This is exactly how crucial grade boundaries are lost and won before you even realize what hit you.
And this brilliantly illustrates a much larger problem. A senior examiner recently pointed out that 9.1 gas exchange is literally one of the most misunderstood areas in the entire Biology 9700 syllabus. Why? Well, they noted that students consistently struggle with applying concepts to unfamiliar contexts. This completely proves that your ordinary revision, just reading the textbook and highlighting key terms, it completely fails you when you sit down for the actual exam. It just doesn't prepare you for the novel, weird, complex scenarios the examiners are about to throw your way.
So what's the actual secret? What's the core strategy of the top-scoring candidates? It's connected conceptual understanding. This isn't just about memorizing random facts about alveoli and blood capillaries. Top performers, they don't just regurgitate the textbook word for word like some sort of biological robot. The syllabus emphasizes that you absolutely need the ability to transfer fundamental theoretical principles into entirely new, completely unfamiliar assessment contexts. You can't just know the information. You have to be able to handle it, evaluate it analytically, and adapt it to literally whatever wild dataset the exam paper presents to you.
Which brings us to our very first quick win in this explainer, the Deconstruct, Solve, Evaluate framework. If you actually want to tackle problem-solving in gas exchange questions, you have to slow down and follow this core procedure. Step 1, identify the given information from the stimulus materials. Step 2, break the problem down into logical steps. Step 3, solve it systematically using clear notation. Step 4, always check your answer for reasonableness. And finally, Step 5, make justified recommendations based on the data. You aren't just writing an answer here, you're building a watertight case.
The examiner clue that changes everything. By mastering that framework, you are setting yourself up for massive success. But wait, in just a second, I'm going to share a hidden examiner clue that changes your answer completely. It is honestly like having the mark scheme early. But first, you need the methodological tools that actually make that clue obvious. Because without these tools, that clue, it's going to remain completely invisible to you.
Okay, so to build that analytical toolkit, you have to select the right statistical framework. It's like picking the right tool for the job. When evaluating data regarding alveoli and blood capillaries, a t-test is your go-to for comparing means. You use a chi-squared test when you're dealing with categorical data. And obviously, correlation tests are what you use when you want to establish relationships between variables. Nailing the exact right test is exactly how you secure those critical methodology marks.
And here is a massive lifesaver, summarized perfectly straight from the principal examiner report. Even if your final answer is wrong, method marks can save you. Just let that sink in for a second. The examiners actually want to see you're working. They're actively looking for clear notation and correct terminology. We call this the method mark strategy. Marks are consistently awarded for the procedural process of extracting relevant data and selecting the analytical framework. It's not just about magically writing down the final correct number at the bottom of the page. Show your work, always.
All right, so we've covered the framework, but we need to escalate things. There is a very specific number we need to talk about. Number 3. These are the top 3 fatal mistakes explicitly highlighted by the Cambridge principal examiners. These are the traps that candidates fall into year after year. First off, answers are often just way too vague. As we saw at the very beginning, just saying lungs isn't going to cut it. Examiners demand specific details, like squamous epithelium. Second, students completely forget to check their units and terminology during calculations or when designing practical investigations. And third, and guys, this is a really big one, answers are not specific to the context given. If the question gives you a specific disease affecting the alveoli, your answer must be tailored to that exact scenario, not just some generic textbook response you memorized.
Okay, it's time for a quick, interactive challenge. Can you spot the critical missing element in a flawed data extraction? Imagine a student simply pulls out a list of raw numbers from a super complex graph about gas exchange rates, scribbles them down in a margin, and tries to average them out. Pause this explainer for just a second, predict what they did wrong based on the warnings we just discussed, and see if you can spot the error. So, did you figure it out? The flawed approach is just numbers extracted in a disorganized mess without any units or clear notation, meaning they lose absolutely all their method marks. But the top band approach? This student followed sequential instructions. They made accurate observations, recorded their data in suitable, clearly labeled tables, and actively identified anomalies before drawing their evidence-based conclusions. This right here is the practical experimental skill level the examiners are actually hunting for.
Now, to reach those descriptive, analytical, and evaluative levels required by the absolute highest mark bands, you have to go beyond just stating facts. Top-scoring candidates question the given assumptions in a prompt. They consider different biological perspectives when evaluating alternatives, and most importantly, they justify every single decision and conclusion with empirical evidence extracted straight from the provided data.
So, how do we actually put all of this together under pressure? By memorizing this ultimate answer flow. It's simple. You start with the core concept. Then you back it up with evidence or data straight from the prompt. After that, you apply clear scientific reasoning to connect the two. And finally, you wrap the whole thing up using precise examiner wording and terminology. This is how you flawlessly translate the fundamental principles of gas exchange into the exact language the mark scheme demands. It literally builds a completely bulletproof response.
So now you have the analytical framework. You know how to extract data, score those sweet method marks, and avoid the top 3 vague mistakes. But I have a final provocative thought for you today. What if you apply this beautiful deconstruct, solve, evaluate framework perfectly? Write a flawlessly structured paragraph and still score an absolute 0 because you misunderstood one single word in the prompt.
That hidden examiner clue I teased earlier? It's the command word. Describe requires a totally different answer than explain or evaluate. If you misread it, your perfectly scientifically accurate answer is completely worthless to the examiner. You literally cannot afford to let that happen. Decoding those command words is the mandatory next step to securing your grade. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel Ace the Exams at acetheexams_IGCSE to join our next masterclass on command words. Until then, ask yourself, when you open that exam paper, will you be answering the question you want to answer or the one the examiner actually asked?